What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Blitz Angle. I'm Ryan Linkletter. I'm here with my co-host Brady Penn. We're back. We're live. Week 6 is almost wrapped up. We got our Monday night matchup between the Buffalo Bills and New York Jets tomorrow night. But Brady, I wouldn't say it was as intriguing as Week 5, but we definitely have a lot of headlines here in Week 6.
Yeah, we got spoiled last week with a
We
phenomenal
really
week,
did.
some really amazing games, but there's a lot of interesting stuff today, and maybe the games weren't quite as close or unpredictable. I'm pretty sure me and you were like 10-2 on our picks this week or something like that. But I mean, there was a lot of intriguing storylines and some stuff that I'm definitely excited to get into.
For sure. Hey, Ghost Warrior, what's up, dude? Thanks for checking in early on in the chat. Let us know your guys' biggest overreactions, questions you guys have about the NFL, any fantasy football related questions as well. We will answer during the show when we're doing our recaps around the NFL. We'll get into tonight's game to start off. Bengals and Giants. Obviously, a really ugly game from both sides, I think. Bengals defense showed some life this week. And we got a good performance from them and, kept them in the game. What's your initial analysis on Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, I mean the Bengals are really hard to figure out. They needed this win.
Yeah.
Obviously, their season was completely over if they lost this game and fell to 1-5. But now they're 2-4, recovering from that loss last week, and they have a path to get back in to playoff position over these next few weeks. Realistically, could probably get up to 6-4 through 10 weeks, maybe with the stretch coming up. But with that being said, they're yet to play a complete game of football. When the offense goes crazy, the defense lets them down. And then in the games where we've seen the defense play really well against the Patriots and the Giants, the offense has not come to play. And Joe Burrow made a really nice play at the end. Chase Brown capped it off with a nice touchdown run for all of us that started Chase Brown in fantasy this week.
Yes, all those fantasy owners love Chase Brown in that final draft.
Yeah, so we had that. But we're just waiting on the Bengals to really piece it together. Joe Burrow and the offense just looked uncomfortable tonight. T. Higgins was really the only guy that got anything going for the most part. And, I mean, it's just hard to figure out the Bengals. On the Giants side of things, I'll say back in week 1, I said that next year the Giants would have a new rookie quarterback. Even though they lost tonight and even though they only put up 7, I don't think Daniel Jones has been bad this year at all. And maybe they still choose to move on at the end of the year just off the fact that they're probably not winning much this season. But Daniel Jones has been solid, especially since about week 2 or 3. And he hasn't had Malik Neighbors for the last 2 weeks, who clearly was his favorite target before he got injured. So I know that Giants fans are frustrated. I know Giants fans miss the days of winning Super Bowls with Eli Manning, but just I would recommend you give Daniel Jones a little bit more time because I don't think he's bad, and obviously he has a really good coach. But, when it comes to New York in general, New York sports, they don't tend to be very patient. So we'll see how it plays out.
No, I agree with you. They're not very patient over there in New York. I will start on New York side of things. With the Giants especially, it really feels like if they had Malik Neighbors in this one, they had a good chance of winning this game. They were just a couple of plays away for breaking through in this one. Obviously, the missed field goal really set them back and hurt them. But Brian Dable's decision-making on 1 4th down early on was not great. Besides that, I was okay with their game plan. It just seemed like they were running a very conservative offense. Daniel Jones was doing the bare minimum to get by, and, it just wasn't clicking well against the Bengals defense that, was playing good. And it's not like they didn't move the ball. Like, they moved the ball very inefficiently down the field. It took a lot of plays, but they got down there and they just couldn't seem like they had that player who could get them past the sticks when they need him to, and that's what Malik Neighbors could have done. But on the defensive side of things, man, their defense, there's a lot to like over there. There really is. And if they
that D-line is nuts.
It is, and they didn't even have Thibodeau tonight. So I think on the defensive side of things, you have to be intrigued by the Giants a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm not saying they're going to be good by any means, but it's intriguing over there kind of what they're building in New York, and they're not as bad as people think. Tonight they played very well, and on the Bengals side of things, you still have a ton of question marks. The offensive line stinks, right? The running game, it seemed like through the second and third quarter, it just disappeared. And bless you, they didn't even go through it and ran the ball much in that second, third quarter, and we saw their offense stall out because of it. When they become one-dimensional, that's when the Bengals are at their worst. They need to run the ball, and we finally saw Chase Brown get more snaps than Moss, but they didn't utilize them at all. So I expect them to get Brown more snaps going forward. That should help fix the problems. But, man, they were close to falling to 1-5. They really were, which would have sunk their season. But, hey, they're 2-4. They're still in it. We both have them making the playoffs, and things are looking up sort of for Cincinnati, I'd say. We'll see what we get next week with the Bengals. And we'll head to the hot topic of the week. Ghost Warrior, is Dallas a playoff-worthy team?
No.
He thinks no, and I think both of us agree. Right now, they don't look like it. And I'll start with this one. It's their defense. They're not healthy at all on that side of the ball, and when they are healthy, they weren't very good this season. Mike Zimmer has not been good. They don't have enough people right now on that defense to even put up a fight. Like going into this one, we both predicted the Lions were going to roll through the Cowboys, and it wasn't going to be a very close game. That's exactly what we got. And if anything, they bullied them. Like they were up 30 points and still passing the ball, giving the ball to Amon-Ra, throwing the ball to linemen, trick plays, all that stuff. Like it was a statement from the Lions. They just wanted to keep beating down the Cowboys. And what we didn't expect completely is the offensive performance we got from Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb over there. They are not on the same page this season. I've never seen a duo that was so dominant the year before with like basically no changes on the offensive side of the ball, just completely lose chemistry the next season, it felt like. Like even the problems that Diggs and Allen had last year, they were never to this level of just not on the same page on multiple throws. And it's kind of concerning that they don't have any other weapons, and CeeDee Lamb and Dak can't get on the same page. When your best weapon and your quarterback are not on the same page and you got nobody else, it's going to be a hard time. They're having a very hard time. And another thing is Ezekiel Elliott complained about the snaps he was playing, right, going into this week. They gave him more snaps. He averaged 2 yards a carry. It was disgusting. And Rico actually played pretty well in the smaller role than he had on the prior week where you saw 20 touches and their offense actually moved the ball well against a good Steelers defense. So a lot of frustrating stuff from Dallas right now. And no, I don't think they're a playoff team right now. They're not healthy, and the offense has a lot of problems to fix. Brady, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, they're tracking for that 8-9 preseason prediction that I had. They're tracking pretty much perfectly for that. That's about where I think they'll end up, between 7-10 and maybe 9-8. But let's start with the Dak and CeeDee thing. I made a video about this the other day, and I think the guy that gets the most heat for this is not Dak, it's not CeeDee, it's Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer. Because if you look up CeeDee Lamb's route trees week by week, it's nothing over 10 yards. Everything is underneath, everything's really short. And the number one thing, they have moved CeeDee Lamb almost entirely out of the slot. Last year, CeeDee thrived in the slot. And this year, week by week, you've seen his slot percentage go down and down and down each week. And as a result, you've seen his numbers do the exact same thing. And then you mentioned them being not on the same page. Yeah, digging into the film, there are times last week in Pittsburgh, CeeDee wants a jump ball. Dak tries to go back shoulder. It gets picked off. There was a play against the Saints that I watched. CeeDee runs straight up the seam and cuts kind of inside shoulder where he wants it. Dak ends up throwing it to the back corner of the end zone. It's uncomfortable. That's the word that I would use for the entire Dallas offense right now. Everything just looks uncomfortable. There's nothing easy. There's no run play that can automatically give you 4 or 5 yards. There's no pass play you really feel super confident in bringing out of the playbook. And part of the thing also is CeeDee is the only threat on that offense. I mean, I know Ferguson is a solid tight end. Nobody's game playing around him, though. He's not a game changer. Their running game stinks. Their offensive line is mid. Their secondary is mid and injured without Deron Bland right now. Their run defense is terrible, and they have no pass rush without Micah Parsons. Like, there is almost nothing to like about this team right now.
Yep, I agree with you. Jacob has a question for you. Hasn't said it in the chat yet. We'll find out what that is soon.
I'm ready. Jacob's my guy. We've been having some nice banter on Twitter. Actually, today he said something. He said that Justin Fields had the better record than Caleb Williams, and I think that he might have said that before the Bears game. And I said, well, no, he doesn't. And then he said, tie goes to the runner, because after Fields won. I was like, okay, that's clever, but no.
Yeah, Jacob is one of our loyal followers here at Blitz. Been here since day one. He is a notey guy. Tip, what's up, dude? Thanks for checking in. Let us know some of your fantasy football takes that you got in the chat, and we'll discuss them as well. Your fantasy content's great, dude. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Most valuable card collectors lost a lot of bets today. I'm feeling it, bro. I took a first. Listen, I had a first quarter.
You had the Laporta anytime though.
Dude, I had a Laporta first touchdown. Did not work out, but First quarter, right? I took Jamar Chase 10+ yards and Wan'Dale Robinson 5+ yards, and it was boosted 8 yards from Chase. It was disgusting. Just a tough rip there. I do want to talk about the Lions a little bit, and we'll talk about Monday Night Football later tonight, but I think we're both going to be leaning Bills in that one for sure.
I just saw the comment, don't hammer the Jets tomorrow. Don't.
Don't hammer the Jets, yeah. What I will say is that the Lions side of things, Aidan Hutchinson is a big loss. Now,
it is.
Look, their offense is unstoppable right now, and I will give them that credit. They honestly, in my opinion, look like the best offense in the NFL the last 2 weeks. I will give them that right now. They're playing
in Baltimore.
They have the most weapons in the NFL, and it's hard to stop all those guys with the great offensive line. What I will say is when it comes down to it in the playoffs, they don't have an elite pass rush anymore. Hutchinson's out, right? And if you don't have an elite pass rush come January, come February, what are you going to do? You're not beating the 49ers. You might have a hard time with the Packers, right? These are teams that you're going to have to beat in the playoffs. And if you don't have a pass rush, what are you going to do? That's my biggest concern with Detroit now. Now, I think both of us will have them at number 3 in our rankings, but that's a big loss. And it's going to be concerning for me going forward how they match up against really good offenses. And their defense hasn't been necessarily impressive with Hutch on the field this year.
Yeah, I mean, their defense has been on and off. Their pass rush has certainly looked better, and the coverage is weird. Carlton Davis has been on and off. He's gotten cooked some games. He's had other good games. And Terry and Arnold, with him, you see the DB skills, but just a lot of penalties so far and a lot of undisciplined play in the back end. So that piece can maybe come together. But like you say, the pass rush is a major concern, and I think the absolute best move that the Lions can make right now is make whatever trade you can to go get Hassan Reddick from the New York Jets. Obviously, Reddick has no interest in playing for the Jets because they have no interest in paying him. The Lions have the 4th most cap space in the NFL right now at $33 million. They can afford to give Reddick a 3-year deal. Even if you only get good play for a year or 2 out of that, you can give him a 3-year deal. I know that I've seen the rumors of there's trouble in paradise over in Vegas. They might can get Max Crosby. I don't think that's happening. I think a Devontae Adams trade is still fairly likely despite Schefter's reports, but I can't see them parting ways with Max Crosby at least mid-season. So I don't think that dream is very real. But Hassan Reddick seems like the best solution here for the rest of this season. Obviously, Hutchinson just is not going to play again this year. So it's going to come down to either you get Hassan Reddick, and maybe that helps your pass rush a little bit. But even with him, the real option that you have probably is just going to January and outscore teams. And a lot of times that teams try to do that in the NFL and don't have the defense to do it, it doesn't really work out great. But I mean, we'll see. I do see a lot of encouragement from Detroit. They started off kind of slow offensively the first few weeks. They've started utilizing Jared Goff in the play action a lot more like they did when they were successful last year. Amon-Ra looks good. Laporta's starting to take off again. Monty just got paid. He's looking good. Jameer's obviously a beast. Like, there's just too many guys to worry about. Jameson Williams is developing. I feel good about the Lions and definitely making it into the playoffs, obviously, and making a run. But I think this Hutchinson injury also opens up the door for the Packers to come and take the NFC North or maybe even the Bears.
Yeah, before we get into the NFC North talk, Tip wanted to mention Chase Brown up. Man, Chase Brown just won me my week in fantasy with that rushing touchdown. So shout out Chase Brown. Big guy. I think we all started. A lot of fantasy analysts around fantasy football, said start Chase Brown. We got that increased snap share this week, which was awesome to see. Zach Moss took a step back. And despite them going away from the run, like we mentioned 10 minutes ago, I love Chase Brown. Great outlook the rest of the season. And that 30-yard touchdown there at the end was awesome for him and great to see as a Chase Brown owner. Let's get right into this now. The NFC North, I will say. The NFC North is one of the topics that I wanted to get into. I think the NFC North coming into the year was the best division in football. And here we are through 6 weeks. It is clearly the best division in football. We have 3 teams with 4 wins, and the Vikings are undefeated right now. Let's talk about the Bears here. The Bears had a big win in London. Caleb Williams was very impressive. And like Jacob mentioned, some people think Fields is better than Caleb. And then some people were claiming that Jaden Daniels needed to be the number 1 overall pick. And that happened last week. If you guys tuned into the space I was talking in last week, that was a topic of conversation. And I shot that down right away because if you were watching the tape, Caleb Williams has been trending in the right direction now throughout the regular season. And what do you know? In week 6, he explodes and the Bears score 35 points. And now everybody's talking about, oh my God, Caleb Williams is so great. The Bears are so back. The Bears are going to make the playoffs, all this, yada, yada, yada. And then Jaden Daniels lost today, and then the topics are kind of going down. So on Twitter, guys, I don't want to hear any more of this slander of Fields is better than Caleb. That was stupid to start, and Jaden Daniels should have been the number 1 overall pick. Let's pump the brakes, okay? Brady, what is your take on the Bears and the NFC North as a whole right now?
Yeah, well, I want to start. Caleb Williams is 100% better than Justin Fields already. He's better than Justin Fields has ever been. And he had 4 touchdowns today. First off, he had 4 passing touchdowns today. Justin Fields has 5 passing touchdowns on the year through 6 games. And he only has 2 4-touchdown games in his career passing-wise over 45 games. And, I mean, Caleb Williams just literally – we talk about it every week. I know they faced 3 really bad defenses in a row. In terms of DVOA entering today, I believe the 3 worst in the league over the last 3 weeks. But that's not what we're concerned about. We're not like, wow, Caleb is overcoming some really tough competition right now. It's the things that Caleb is doing and getting better at that he wasn't at the beginning of the year. We talked about it weeks ago. Caleb was learning what he can and can't do in the NFL. He was learning his wide receivers. Keenan Allen got a late start here. I know Rome Odunze is taking a little bit of a back seat right now as he kind of learns things himself. But this offense is starting to get going. It's back-to-back weeks with 35+. Caleb Williams had some really, really good throws. I mean, he had a great throw to the back of the end zone, throwing Keenan Allen open on a fade ball. He fit a really tight window into Allen later on in the game. He found DJ Moore. I mean, it was just a really good game from Caleb Williams. And, we talked about this. We have that Bears and Commanders game coming up. And that's going to be a big matchup, Daniels against Williams. And watch, I promise you, if the Bears win that game, people are going to pretend they were never saying any of this stuff about Jaden Daniels compared to Caleb. They're going to hop back on the Caleb train. They're going to say he's the rookie of the year. Bet he becomes like the betting odds favorite if they win that game because of how fast narratives flip in the National Football League. But the Bears as a whole, I mean, that defense is really, really good. They got Montez Sweat leading the charge with the pass rush. They've got Edmonds at the linebacker position as well as TJ Edwards, who played really well today. He's also a really good coverage linebacker, in my opinion. And then that secondary is just nasty. They're a tough, scrappy secondary. You got Jalen Johnson, and then you got the rest of the guys like Brisker, Kyler Gordon. These dudes are physical. They play hard, and they play really well. They have not given up a whole lot this season. Combine that with the offensive weapons and the offensive line seemingly improving along with Caleb, and the Bears are a really dangerous team. And if the Bears can, are they 4-2 right now? They've got a really tough schedule coming up. They probably need to win 5 of their last 10 to make the playoffs. Just go 500 the rest of the way. They're probably in. And I promise you, if that happens, they're not a team that anybody's going to want to see in January. Not saying they're going to be the number 1 seed or anything like that, but as they gradually improve throughout the year, they're going to be a team that other teams would rather avoid.
And it's because of their defense. Their defense is the best part of the Bears right now. And a young quarterback with a good defense is a tough combination to beat, and especially considering everything Ryan Poles has added to that skill position group to make it easier for Caleb Williams. Things are looking up in Chicago.
I'm going to go ahead and say this. I don't care. Like, this might be a hot take. People can agree with me. Shoot it down all you want. In the next 4 years, the Chicago Bears will be in a Super Bowl.
Oh, man.
Something I haven't seen in my lifetime. The Chicago Bears will be in a Super Bowl.
All right. Going off of that, though, we had the Packers. The Packers, obviously, we had our questions about Jordan Love, and I mentioned he was kind of shaking off some rust, it looked like, this season. We finally had his first really good performance of the season. And, everybody's just looking good in the NFC North. All of our questions we had about the Packers coming into this one it feels like they've been answered. They played great on defense. Jordan Love was great today, despite, they just plug and play these wide receivers every week. It doesn't matter who it is in that group. Jaden Reed's obviously the number 1 there. He's been great this season, but besides that, they plug and play all these guys, and they're really good regardless of who's in there. So the Packers had everything rolling again. We're going forward, where do you see this division shaking out? Who's finishing first? Who's finishing fourth? What is your initial gut telling you?
It's really tough. Man, I've been all over the place with a lot of these teams. Um, the Vikings, I've talked about how much they've impressed me. If I had to put money on it, I've got Minnesota becoming the last place team at the end of the year in the NFC North. And I
Yeah.
don't think they're going to be a 7-win last place team. They can legitimately win 9 games and finish last place in the NFC North. I'm going to go with the Bears in that 3 spot. We'll see. They'll be fighting for that 7 seed in the NFC. And I'm going to go with the Lions in the 2. I think the Hutchinson injury means a lot. I think they're still going to be really good, really explosive on offense. But I think the Packers are going to do just enough, especially I like them in the head-to-head matchup, honestly, and I like them winning that division. I'm going to stand on my conviction in the preseason and have the Packers as my division winner. Matt LaFleur is going to keep doing his thing, and you said we had our questions about Jordan Love. I still do, honestly. I want someone to teach Jordan Love that he has a front foot that he can use when he's throwing the football.
He's Aaron Rodgers, bro.
It
He doesn't need
me nuts off the back foot, skipping it in the ground. I mean, even like one of his big highlight plays today was a seriously underthrown ball to Romeo Doubs that he like turned around and made a great adjustment to, which, by the way, that's another thing. We've heard all these stories about Doubs, and regardless of how the org feels or how the higher-ups in Green Bay feel, just the reaction by his teammates to that touchdown shows you how they feel about him and how they want him there. I mean, these guys love 87, another young guy in that young wide receiving core, and between him, Watson, Reed, and if Dontavian Wicks can learn to catch the football himself, Tucker Kraft, like this is a good, underrated pass catching group that has a lot of youth, has a lot of upside. And if Jordan Love can get it going like he did in the second half of last year, maybe we find out Jordan Love's a second half of the season type of guy. But this is a dangerous team. Their defense is starting to look better. Like you said, Xavier McKinney has been one of the best pickups of the offseason so far, has held that defense down. Jair Alexander is still really, really good. And there's just a lot to like in Green Bay. I think it's going to be a dogfight between them and the Lions, with the Bears kind of in semi-close pursuit behind. But I'm going with the Packers, the Lions, the Bears, and then the Vikes.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with I think the Lions are going to win. I think they're going to be the first place team. I don't think the defense.
That's fair. I can see it easily.
Yeah, I don't think the defense is going to be that much of an impact, I guess, to get to the playoffs and be that number 1 seed. I think they'll be that number 1, not the number 1 seed in the NFC, the number 1 seed in the NFC North. The second place team, and I'll get into this. We have a few questions about the Bears and Washington game. We'll discuss that right now. I think the Bears are taking second in this division. I think they do have the easiest schedule in the division, right?
Do they? It's a tough stretch coming up. I haven't seen Green Bay.
They have to split. They basically have to split with their division, and they'll finish second, right? This game against Washington, I think they're going to beat Washington. They have a great front seven, right? They're going to be able to counteract the run game that we saw the Ravens do this week, and it made Washington one-dimensional. Obviously, they got theirs at some points because Jaden Daniels is a really good football player, and the Commanders, Cliff Kingsbury, is doing a great job over there. But I think the Bears are a similar type of defense to the Ravens up front, and it's going to provide a lot of problems for Washington, especially if they're not healthy. And on the offensive side of things, we saw Lamar Jackson today absolutely cook up a brutal Commanders secondary. The only quarterback that has played bad against the Commanders secondary has been Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson is not a top quarterback in the NFL right now.
He's the worst.
Expect Caleb Williams to have a big week and those weapons in Chicago. So that's kind of my prediction with that one. In third place, I got the Minnesota Vikings. And I think, I just think the Vikings are rolling right now. 5-0. They beat a lot of the hard teams on their schedule right now.
They did beat Green Bay.
They already have that one win over Green Bay. They're the only team in the division, right, with a win in the division so far. And I just think, the way they started the season, if they were to regress, I still think they end up with 11, 12 wins, maybe, right? Sam Darnold would have to fall off the face of the earth, or they'd have to have.
That's what I'm waiting on.
I think we're all.
We saw a little bit last week.
That was the Jets. The Jets are a great pass defense. So
they are.
And then in fourth, I got the Green Bay Packers. They just don't LaFleur is a great guy. I think they go 11-6. I think
11-6 last place team.
I think we're gonna have 4 teams out of the.
That would be the greatest division of all time, probably.
Dude, it's trending that way. Like they all have the schedules to do it. They do. And
Yeah.
they're all like if you look at the NFC outside of San Francisco, um San Francisco, actually only San Francisco, right? The East is up for grabs. Jacob mentioned the Giants are going to win that division, right? We're going to get one team out of the East, we're going to get one team out of the West, and we're going to get one team out of the South. And then we're going to get all four from the North. I don't see
I still think we might
obviously,
get two. I still think we might get two in the South.
yeah, with Tampa Bay and Atlanta are both 4-2, but I don't know. Both of them obviously have their flaws, and we saw them exposed this week. Baker Mayfield was a interesting. He's so weird because he plays bad against teams he just should beat up on.
The thing
Like
is,
this,
he had 3 picks. I'll say that only one of them was really his fault.
yeah, the
But
tip
he
balls
still
are
had like
obviously.
it was like 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, 300 something. It was like a Madden stat line.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I could see it. 4 teams out of the North, and you know what I want to say on about this too is let's go to the NFC East. The Commanders are obviously on top right now. Do you think that's going to stay the same, or are we going
I
to have any
still,
wild card teams? What's it looking like in the East right now?
I'm still leaning with Philly. They didn't look great today,
Mm-mm.
but I just still trust in Philly because I think that once they get a little bit healthier, I trust. Here's how I'll break it down. When it comes to each of these teams in the division, Philly may not have the greatest sum of their parts, but when it comes to comparing each team's top end talent, Philly still got the most. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, guys like that. I'm just going to go out with them. They were my preseason pick. I think the winner of this division probably only needs 10, 11 wins to win it. And yeah, I'm going to rock out with Philly. I would not be surprised to see Washington, but something tells me that Washington is going to cool off a little bit over the next 4 or 5 weeks. We saw them lose a hard-fought game against a really good Baltimore team today, but I mean,
They're not there defensively.
yeah, they're not there defensively. And then I do think there's something to be said. Jaden Daniels has still been good the last 2 weeks. He's still been good. At the very least, he's been solid. I think that the last 2 weeks you've seen him have to work a little bit harder in terms of the passing game. I think defenses are slowly adjusting just a little bit, and not adjusting in terms of like shutting him down or anything. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to do that just with the threat of his legs, but it's been a tougher go of it for him the last 2 weeks. And I think that might even continue into next week with the Bears. And who knows? We've seen Cliff Kingsbury offenses fall off pretty much his whole career in the second half of the season. So it's a tough call, but I'm riding with Philly. I don't think it's going to be the Giants, and I certainly don't think it's going to be the Cowboys. So
Yeah, I think one of the things that concerns me with Washington winning the division is that the Giants and the Eagles have great run defenses. And if they become one-dimensional early in those games, it could be really tough for them.
well,
So
we've also seen AJ Brown destroy Washington's secondary multiple times.
the Eagles, and I'd say the Giants match up very well against the Commanders secondary. Sorry, but and then Cowboys they only have CeeDee Lamb. They would be able to double team CeeDee Lamb, and we'll see if they get anything out of anybody else. But the biggest thing is that the Cowboys, how are they going to stop Saquon Barkley? How are they going to stop the combination of Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, and McNichols for the Commanders? And then for the Cowboys, how do you work past the Eagles defense, right? They have all these question marks in the division. I really see the Cowboys finishing third. I'm not going to go fourth. I still think the Giants are going to finish fourth. I'm not going to go that far, but they clearly look like the third best team in the division. And an 8-9, 9-8 record just seems pretty like on par with their play going forward. And I know we didn't talk about this earlier, but let's kind of segue right into this. Coaches on the hot seat. I'm going to start Doug Peterson, obviously. We got McCarthy's getting hot. Sirianni with a win today. That helped him a little bit.
I don't care. I don't care. It honestly is even worse for him that he was talking crap to the fans after. That was a horrible.
Oh, my gosh, yes. Him. You got Zach Taylor had a win today, which helped him a little bit. But, I mean, offensively wasn't anything impressive by any means.
Dude,
and then,
can I throw a name out here?
Yeah, throw a name.
We've seen this a couple of times in the last few years, and I'm not sure it's entirely fair, although I do think he's been bad and has made some very bad choices. I think Gerard Mayo might be one and done. Like, I seriously could see it. If this season just continues to be a train wreck, the fact that I know there were the concerns about the offensive line. There still are when it comes to putting Drake May back there. The offense today looked so much better than it did any game with Jacoby Brissett. The defense was horrible, and he's there as a defensive guy, inheriting a defense that was top 10 for pretty much each of the last 4 or 5 years. Now all of a sudden they're garbage. The offensive line is horrible. The personnel decisions have been horrible. And, fair enough. We've seen it a few times in the last few years. We saw it in Arizona a few years back. We saw it in Houston a few years back. And I think that there is more of a chance than people might realize that Gerard Mayo is out after this season.
What about Doug Peterson? Right?
Oh, he's gone.
He's gone for sure, but mid-season, do you think we saw Salah fired after London, and they have another London game this next week, maybe after a potential loss that week?
I kind of lean no, and the only reason that I say no is there's a certain level of respect in the NFL when it comes to guys that have won a Lombardi trophy. That's the smaller of the two things that I'm going to mention here, but that is worth mentioning. When it comes to a guy that brought Jacksonville to the playoffs when nobody thought they were going to be anywhere near a playoff team and has won a Super Bowl in recent-ish memory, I mean, within the last 10 years, there's a level of respect there. And then on top of that, Doug Peterson might not be a great football coach, but he's one of those guys that the locker room truly seems to love. He seems like a player's coach, and I think for that reason they might wait until the end of the year to fire him. That being said, it would not shock me at all if he did get canned, especially if they lose next week, but I think there's a solid chance of him riding out the year, especially with the perceived talent and upside, I guess, of the roster compared to where their record is. They probably should have 2-3 wins instead of the one, just based off what their team is, based off the way a couple of those losses have been, like the Miami loss week 1. So we'll see, but I kind of lean towards Peterson getting the year.
Yeah, and one of the names I think that's intriguing for them is Ben Johnson. He's going to be a hot commodity, but I think his coaching style and the weapons they have on offense fit really well in Jacksonville, that I could see it being a pretty seamless transition. And he's not going to leave Detroit for a pretty bad situation. I
kind of think Belichick, man.
For Jacksonville?
Yes. Yeah, that's the name I keep seeing linked. And the reason why, Shad Khan apparently and his son are like this with Belichick. And, Belichick is going to want to go to a team where he feels like there's talent. And at the end of the day, all Bill Belichick cares about right now is trying to break Shula's record. He wants to get back into coaching. Jerry Jones, he's not going to go deal with that ego. That's a huge ego clash. Philly, maybe, but I mean, it's really probably between Philly and Jacksonville in terms of if Bill gets another coaching job. I think he is in the running, but Ben Johnson is certainly a candidate there. Him, Joe Brady, and Bobby Slowick will all be in the market here this offseason, I believe.
Do you think the Cowboys are going to let go of Mike McCarthy this season? And I don't think he's the main root of the problems, though.
But at a certain point, when you have an owner like Jerry Jones, who, he just
bad owner.
He's a bad owner. He just wants to win. He's probably not patient. We've seen him can guys before. I think that after the consistent string of the Cowboys underperforming, because even though we didn't think their roster was great this year, I think it's safe to say they're underperforming based off where they were last year.
They're not even competitive in some of these games.
Exactly. They were the number 2 seed last year in the NFC. They got trounced at home in the first round. The year before that, defense plays a great game against Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Dak and the offense can't do anything. The year before that, they run out of time, lose as favorites at home to San Francisco. I mean, it's just not looking good for Mike McCarthy. I think that there needs to be a change there. And obviously the change can't be Dak Prescott. You just paid him a ton of money. He's there for the long haul. And when it comes down to fixing problems, you're usually either going to get a new quarterback or get a new coach. They're not getting a new quarterback, and I think Mike McCarthy is going to be out of there after this season.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do on the defensive side of the ball because they just don't have any run defense. I know Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence are out, and those are two big guys against the run.
They were bad when those guys were in.
Yeah, they struggle when those guys are in. And I think the writing's on the wall for Micah Parsons. They just can't afford to pay them and to fix that defense. And they kind of made their bed when they paid cornerbacks and it hasn't worked out. Paying quarterbacks rarely works out for teams. I do want to get to this. We wanted to talk about Drake May's debut, and then I wanted to also talk about Bo Nix and the Broncos potentially being pretenders. So let's talk about Drake May real quick. Brady, what were your kind of quick notes about Drake May and his debut?
Well, it got off to a really rough start. I was prepared for the worst after the first drive or two. I mean, the very first drive, Alex Van Pelt decides to call inside zone, no gain, inside zone, no gain. And then they pass it on third down. Nobody's open. There's instant pressure, and May has to throw it away. The O line was terrible, like we thought they were going to be. But somehow Drake May did elevate this offense. I mentioned it earlier in the episode. I think Drake May already in his first game had more passing touchdowns than Jacoby Brissett had in 5 weeks. And it's risky. It's risky with this O-line. But one thing I will say, people, when they say that, I think they're kind of overplaying Drake May as some like frail cat back there in the pocket. This isn't Bryce Young we're talking about. This is a dude that is 6'4", 200 something that can take a hit. We saw him do it in North Carolina, but I was impressed. I give him a B grade for his first game, all things considered. The interception, it was bad. It was an overthrow. And after that, he seemed to lock in a little bit. When he had time, you saw the 50-yard bomb down the field. That was a perfect throw. I saw Next Gen Stats say that there was 0.7 yards of separation on that throw, and he fit it perfectly in stride to Butte. We saw him and Pop Douglas have a really nice connection there, especially in the second half. Saw him get a nice touchdown where Drake hit him in stride. We saw Drake make plays out of structure, rolling around to the right, finding guys, extending plays. And I think that all in all, this Patriots roster is horrible, and they need a lot of work. But Drake May, all things considered, all factors considered, it was about as good of a debut as you could have asked for from him.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say about his debut is it's exactly what kind of we thought he was coming out of college. Like, he looks exactly like I would expect out of Drake May in his debut, right? We get the special throw on the sideline for the touchdown, and we're like, wow, that's a really good throw. And his talent was never kind of the question. And then we obviously got the throw early on with the interception, the overthrow, and that's kind of what Drake May. It's a good assumption of like what we've seen Drake May be at North Carolina coming into the draft process, and it's kind of making those mistakes less often and making more kind of clean within schedule throws in the NFL that he needs to work on. We saw some of that, which was encouraging. We obviously saw some of the bad that didn't turn out well. So I think obviously with more reps, he has the talent to do it for sure. We've seen it. The talent's never been a question with May. It's about getting the reps, being able to not get frustrated that he's on his back every 4 plays with this bad offensive line. And it's up to the Patriots to scheme up plays that are easy for May to get him going. Why not get him a few short routes to get him going early on? Yep. Don't rely necessarily on his talent to go win you games, because he's never going to develop into a better quarterback, because he already is a talented quarterback who sometimes gets in trouble by relying on his talent too much. So make it easier for Drake May going forward. The offensive line sucks. Get the ball to your hands early. Find a way to get balls in your playmakers' hands. And we saw Pop Douglas. Pop Douglas is a good football player that not many people
last year.
Yeah, and Polk's a good player too. Kendrick Bourne's coming back. Boodle had a good day. Like, they have okay weapons. Obviously not special, but there's different creative ways they can use to get the ball in those players' hands.
Go get T. Higgins.
And when Ramondre Stevenson comes back too, that'll help make things easier. Not every game is going to be against the Houston Texans. So
I do want to add here. We've been back and forth on this ever since the offseason. Is it good to start Drake May? Do we want to risk it with him behind this offensive line? I think that Drake May going the rest of the season is a positive for the Patriots, and I think that he will be the guy in there for the rest of the time, unless he just starts to struggle mightily, which I don't really envision. And by mightily, I mean worse than Jacoby Brissett was, which is really, really tough too. But I think that it's going to be good for them. I think, like you said, it's great for him to get the reps. I think he can survive behind this offensive line, especially not being a smaller quarterback. And I think that it's a really encouraging sign that we saw the game we saw from him today against the defense that is the best in the NFL getting pressure on the quarterback. The Texans are not even top 5 in the league in terms of blitzing, and they have by a decent margin, the highest pressure percentage in the NFL. We did see Will Anderson get 3 sacks today. Danielle Hunter was getting in there, but it didn't phase Drake Maye. And it's only going to get, like by definition, it's only going to get easier the rest of the season in terms of the pass rush you're facing. So I thought it was really nice to see Drake Maye stand in there, make some big throws, not get rattled, and look overall pretty solid, I'd say, for his debut against the statistically best pass rushing unit in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's go to Denver real quick. We'll close with this one right here.
This is one of our L's today.
It is one of our L's. And the Broncos defense was bad to start. They obviously turned it up a little bit in the second half and figured out what the Chargers do, which is basically run the ball twice, play action once every 3 downs, and they take up 8-minute drives. Broncos couldn't get off the field early and struggled. And Bo Nix and the offense were really bad to start this one. What is your take on kind of the Broncos as a contender going forward and Bo Nix's start to his NFL career?
Well, Bo Nix is not very good. And the Broncos defense played really well and put him in advantageous situations to where it looked like, and this may still be the case to an extent, but more than it was, it made it look like he was improving, and becoming more of a solid quarterback. This is like 3 or 4 games that we've already seen from Nix. I'm going to start calling it pulling a Nix or cooking up a Nix, where you have these ridiculous QB stat lines. This dude was like 3 for 12 for like 22 yards in the third quarter. And he's had multiple games. There was a game a few weeks ago against the Jets where it was halftime and he was at like -8 passing yards. Like, it's insane. And with Bo Nix, I don't see the long-term upside in terms of becoming a franchise guy for a few reasons. A, this is a dude that spent a lot of time in college. I mean, he's a 5-year college guy. He's was supposed to be one of the more pro-ready quarterbacks. Sean Payton said it himself all the time this offseason. This dude is the most pro-ready, yada, yada, yada. Bo Nix cannot read a defense. He sits back there, waits for an opportunity to scramble, and tries to either find an open guy in the scramble drill or take off and get 8 to 10 yards. He doesn't have a good arm. He can't really throw the ball down the field well. There were multiple underthrows to open guys down the field. And I just don't know how this dude ends up being that guy that plays 8 to 10 years in Denver, putting up numbers, especially once Sean Payton is gone in a few years probably. I mean, I just don't see it with him. The Chargers, they're another team that's really confusing to me because you've got Justin Herbert. You're not really utilizing him yet, but you've got Justin Herbert. And you need to get him a outside receiver, a true good outside receiver, because his 2 best throws of the season have been to a running back, J.K. Dobbins. Against the Chiefs, he had a phenomenal throw to Dobbins. Today, he had a great throw down the sideline to J.K. Dobbins. Ladd McConkey is a good player.
I don't think the Chargers are as bad as people think.
No, they're not. And the defense looked really good today with getting Derwin James
Their
back.
defense is good this season.
They are. They've played really well, especially in terms of EPA. I believe they're a top 5 unit. And even in that game they lost to the Chiefs, their defense is the thing that kept them in the ball game, save for one deep touchdown to Xavier Worthy. But I'm waiting for them to give Herbert more of a chance to showcase his talent and to elevate this offense. And I think the word that I'd use to describe the way the Chargers play offense and game plan is safe. They play to control the game and to not lose the game offensively. They don't want Herbert taking any risky throws. They don't really want any tight windows or downfield shots for the most part. They want safe underneath to intermediate throws where they can get yards after the catch, stay ahead of the chains, and hand the ball off 30 times a game, which, it's worked before. It's worked for Jim Harbaugh, especially in college. We saw Greg Roman do that early on. We saw Lamar Jackson win an MVP in this type of offense back in 2019, but I think maybe you have to wait to see it until the Chargers get a true wide receiver 1, which some people thought they should have with Malik Neighbors. I liked the Joe Alt pick. I still do, but you might have to wait for that, but that's what I'm waiting for with the Chargers, is to unleash Justin Herbert.
Yeah, and I kind of see them as a sneaky little contender in the AFC if they keep playing the way they do, because they don't have
I give it next year. I think next year's the year you start seeing them be good.
They have 4 games against the Broncos and the Raiders with I think they were 4th place last year, so they have a 4th place schedule with 4 games against those teams. That's a pretty good draw for a team that plays very safe and could win 10 games this season, sneak in as a 7th seed. They're going to make zero noise this year by they're not going to do anything with that. But
They
it's
do have a
interesting.
favorable schedule coming up, I will say. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah,
It's Cardinals next week, which yeah, that's a toss up. I feel like Cardinals Chargers is a toss up. Saints Chargers, they should take care of business in that one. Browns Chargers, they should take care of business in that one. Titans Chargers, they should take care of business in that one. And that's when it gets real after that. From November 17th to December 15th, Bengals, Ravens, Falcons, Chiefs, Bucks, 5 in a row.
I think the two games they could steal there against the Bengals and the Bucks. This seems like the perfect team to beat the Bengals.
Yeah,
Like
I can
the
see that.
way that they're built and schemed. But I'll go to the Broncos real quick. Really disappointing. Like this was the game they needed to win for people to be like, oh, the Broncos could be a contender this year.
Right. Could have like 3 or 4 game winning streak, right?
Nope, 4. Yeah, it could have been a 4-game winning streak. Nope, Bo Nix didn't show up today. The offense didn't show up. They got back in the game towards the end in garbage time. Doesn't matter. I'm not buying into the Broncos as a playoff team. They are bad. The defense is not as good as people want to think. And it all starts with Bo Nix. It does. And as a rookie, I don't want to completely grill him because he still has a lot of growing to do as a football player. He is an older rookie, but it's just brutal. Like you mentioned, the really bad stats at halftime, and it's not even like being a box score watcher. Like it's disgusting to watch this team move the ball at times through the air.
They're
And
even safer than the Chargers.
yeah, it's bad. And they don't have a running game like the Chargers.
Nope.
If their defense isn't playing lights out, they're just gonna get cooked. And
I
we saw
will
Pat
say-
Surtain go down with an injury today too. So not ideal for them right now in Denver.
Yeah. Oh, my bad. I was going to add one more thing.
Yeah,
I will say perpetually underrated wide receiver in the NFL is Cortland Sutton. Had a sick catch at the end of the game. And pretty much, I saw someone comment this, I agree, pretty much was the reason for the, quote, resurgence of Russell Wilson towards the tail end of last year was Cortland Sutton, number 14 in Denver. Get him on a real team. It won't be the Chiefs. I know we say they need wide receiver help. Denver's not sending him to KC. They're probably not trading him in general, but get him on a real team. And I do want to say there is one more game if we have 5 minutes. Just I wanted to touch on one team even. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the Falcons, a team that we found really intriguing the last few weeks. I'll start it off. The Falcons' clear, glaring weakness. I mean, the pass rush has been bad. I do think it's going to start coming along. It was going against a pretty bad O-line today, but we saw Grady Jarrett get in there. We know what Matthew Judon can do. I think they'll regress positively a little bit back towards the mean as the season goes on, maybe more like the 22nd, 23rd ranked pass rush instead of the worst in the NFL as the season goes. But their run defense, they can't stop anybody on the ground. You saw it in that Chiefs game. The Chiefs relied on the run game heavily in the second half there with Carson Steele. You saw Alvin Kamara run the ball pretty well on them, and they've got to fix that up. But what I want to talk about, the Falcons' offense, man, they're starting to. I know it's Carolina, but we did see it against Tampa last week, and we've seen it. We saw it against the Saints the week before. They had some good moments. They're climbing and climbing. Kirk is looking more, getting on the same page with these guys, save for Kyle Pitts giving up on a fade ball in the end zone in the game. But I mean, even him, Kyle Pitts had another solid game today. I think 60, 70 something yards. Drake London got in the end zone once again. And their run game is a real threat if this offensive line can start to block better. Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier both had over 100. First time that the Falcons have had 2 100-yard rushers in a game since Michael Vick was in Atlanta. And, I mean, Kirk's looking good. Darnell Mooney, another guy that's one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL to me. And that tandem, said it last week after the Bucs game, one of the most underrated receiver tandems, London and Darnell Mooney in the NFL. I firmly believe that this team is winning the NFC South, and in a game where they didn't feel like they were as sharp as they have been last week or some of the other weeks this season, they still hung up 38 points.
The Atlanta Falcons are winning the NFC South. I 100% agree with you with that one. The Buccaneers seem very inconsistent right now, which is very frustrating. And Falcons already have that win over the Bucs, which is going to be huge down the stretch for them.
If they can win in Tampa, it's over.
I'm not going to say it's over by any means.
If they can win in Tampa, I'm calling it. They win the game in Tampa, it's over.
I'm not going to say it's over. I'm not going to go that far, but they have already done a great deal of progress with that win last week over the Bucs on Thursday night, and it really sparked that offense. It gave them life. They have progress. Kirk Cousins is now fully engraved, it seems like, in the system, and they're playing to his strengths. Now it seems like at all times, credit to Zach Robinson to adjusting the game plan to what works for Kirk Cousins, and they're starting to get clicking now. And I want to talk about Drake London a little bit. Drake London reminds me of Travis Kelce running routes against zone coverage. London is so good at sitting down right where there's an open hole.
Yep.
And if you watch Drake London run routes on all 22 film, he rarely runs at full speed to start. He's like building up, seeing and reading a defense, and then he'll hit his cut to his route and he'll find open space. It's very impressive what I'm seeing out of Drake London, and it's something that nobody mentions about his game that is really good. And obviously, Kelsey's made a living off of killing zone defenses over the years. And with Kirk Cousins, right, he's going to be so good. Like, it's just Drake London's a really good football player, and I'm glad that Kirk Cousins is finally allowing Drake London to showcase his skills with some good numbers weekly.
Yeah, I mean, a couple years back, it's funny. Drake London was in that same first-round class with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, and a lot of people after year one, even after last year, probably had Drake London as the third receiver out of those three. In my opinion, he's the best. I think Drake London is the best out of those three. I know Garrett Wilson's a really good player. Him and Rodgers are still trying to get on the same page. Chris Olave has shown a lot of really good stuff, but
I will say that he is 100% the smartest football player of those three.
yes, Drake London, I mean, he was pacing with those guys statistically with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder as his quarterbacks. And in an offense where there's a lot of guys to share the rock with, this dude was probably going to have a 10 to 12 touchdown season. I think we've seen him score like 4 of the last 5 games or something like that. And saw him last week play a big role in the Tampa game. Could have had another touchdown today to make it 2, had it knocked out in the end zone. I mean, this Falcons offense, just there's a lot to like there, and if their defense can come along a little bit, we saw them with multiple picks today. A.J. Terrell getting an interception, and Jesse Bates, best safety in the NFL, in my opinion. And I'll say, as an Atlanta resident, it has been a long time since I've seen like people in the city, probably since Matt Ryan and the 2016 Falcons that lost obviously in the Super Bowl. It's been since then that I've felt this city like juiced about the Atlanta Falcons. I go into restaurants, I hear people talking about, man, that boy Bijan Robinson, he's so good. Hey, Kirk looks nice, like all this and that. I went to Chick-fil-A the other day after the Bucks Falcons game the next day, and in a 30-minute span, I saw 3 people wearing Kirk Cousins gear in that Chick-fil-A. And it's refreshing to see. As somebody that I'm not a Falcons fan, but I root for them as a team in the city. You know, like it's cool to see the hometown team being good in sports in general. And it's just really nice to see. You know, ATL loves to get hype over things and get down and have a good time. And they're starting to do that with the Falcons for the first time in forever. So it's really encouraging. And don't let them get a playoff game in the bins, because that thing will be really rowdy.
I will say one of the coolest things about being an NFL fan is when your team is good and seeing everybody basically around the city and like in the state wearing that team's jersey almost like every day of the week. You're seeing somebody wear that type of gear. One of the coolest feelings.
Look at your team. I mean, you were around, you saw the Matt Castle 2-14 Chiefs, and now your team is the greatest team in the NFL. They've got a dynasty. You go to Kansas City, you walk around and see nothing but 15, 87, 95 around the city.
I will say back in the day, not much has changed in that town. It's like
they're a football
Kansas
town.
City, there is not a ton around there, and they just live and die by their sports. And regardless if it's Matt Castle or Patrick Mahomes, somebody will be wearing a Chiefs jersey in KC. And it's the same thing here in Chicago, is you always see people in Bears gear. Now, they've been bullish on the Bears, but the Bears might be back.
Not in Atlanta. They're fair weather in Atlanta, man. We got the Braves around for people to be hyped.
That is very true.
UGA football as well. So
that is very true. But hey, we really appreciate you guys tuning into the live stream. If you guys are watching this on YouTube on Monday morning, let us know some of your biggest overreactions down below. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Blitz Angle.
Yes, sir.